Good afternoon. It's Monday, the 12th of January. I'm Erin Viner, and this is IBA News broadcasting from Jerusalem. We open in Paris, where more than 1 million French citizens poured into the streets of Paris during last night's rally of unprecedented size in tribute to the 17 victims of Islamist terror attacks last week. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was among other world leaders in attendance, and he promised the members of Europe's largest Jewish community that they would find homes in Israel. We get more in this report from IBA's Aria O'Sullivan.
It was, by all accounts, the largest rally ever held on French soil, brought together following 2 vicious terrorist attacks that killed 17 people, including 6 French Jews. Over 3.5 million people marched in central Paris and other cities across France. The rally in Paris, under heavy security, drew over 1.5 million people, including more than 40 world leaders, who marched arm in arm through the streets at the head of the crowd. Attending were Germany's Angela Merkel and British Prime Minister David Cameron. And yet, the rally was largely in respectful silence and vague in its agenda, which was mainly a call for solidarity. Many held placards reading freedom of speech or Je suis juif, I am a Jew, but there were no speeches. It was mainly an emotional, spontaneous outpouring to the slaughter of 17 French citizens by homegrown Islamic terrorists.
We condemn all sort of terrorism. We want live together. We want peace. We want prosperity. We want brotherhood.
Netanyahu was given, or took, a frontline position near Hollande, who was also flanked by PA Chairman Mahmoud Abbas. Reportedly, the French had told Netanyahu that if he came, they would also invite Abbas, and so it was the first time they were seen together in years, albeit separated by 4 dignitaries. Economic Minister Naftali Bennett, head of the Beit HaYehudi party, was appalled that the French would invite Abbas.
The fact that Abu Mazen and Qatar were part of this demonstration means that we're not calling a cat a cat. This terror is not a generic terror. We're talking about Islamic terror that is against the free world and against Jews. There's no difference between a terror attack in Tel Aviv, in New York, in Paris, or in Itamar. This radical Islamic terror is trying to eradicate all freedom and Jews anywhere they may be. We have to fight it with all the force.
Abbas also came under criticism from Hamas, calling him hypocritical and said he should first worry about his own people. Later, Netanyahu joined Hollande at a Paris synagogue where over 3,000 worshippers greeted them singing the national anthem. Among those attending the memorial event were heads of the Christian and Muslim communities. Speaking in Hebrew, Netanyahu made a statement directly to French Jews. Jews who wish to come to Israel are welcome, with open arms and with all our warmth. They will not come to a foreign land, and with the help of God, a great number of you will come to Israel. The Prime Minister also took the occasion to praise a Muslim man for saving the lives of Jews at the supermarket siege. Later, crowds gathered at the site of the kosher supermarket where the bloody siege left 4 Jews dead. I'm afraid, I'm very afraid, said this Jewish Parisian. It's a sentiment being heard more and more among the 500,000-strong Jewish community in France. And when the largest Jewish community in Europe lives in fear, it's bound to ripple across the continent. Aria O'Sullivan for IBA News.
There have also been many rallies and demonstrations of support with France being held at many locations around the world. Reporter Alexander Jen has been keeping track and joins me now with the latest.
Yes, Erin. The 3 days of terror in France have left a great impression on sympathizers worldwide. They rallied for the basic rights of freedom of expression and religion. Some people rallied to condemn terrorism, some to defend the right to freedom of expression. For all, it was solidarity with France. The terrorist attacks at the Charlie Hebdo office and the Jewish supermarket have mobilized people worldwide.
It's to do with the Paris massacres, the terrorist attacks in Paris, basically, and to show that we're all united together, all nations.
People sang the French national anthem in the streets. They marched in unison while clapping and holding signs in support of France, including the renowned I Am Charlie sign. It has become the motto of the spontaneous anti-terrorism, pro-freedom gatherings. It represents the solidarity with the victims of the French attacks, an outcry of justice. The unity marches also declare that people refuse to live in fear. Fear for their lives, fear of terrorism, fear for a violation of their rights. Nadim Gamayal, a Lebanese member of the parliament, assures that today's cause is one of peace and freedom, a cause for people who want to live peacefully and free around the world. Another popular show of support for demonstrators was holding up pencils and pens. This powerful symbol of freedom of the press could be seen during many of the rallies. Lilian Pirot says freedom of the press is one of the most important rights of a democratic society, and it must be defended at any price. New York City and London both lit their landmarks in France's colors in a show of support. London's Tower Bridge and Trafalgar Square and the iconic Empire State Building were colored in blue, red, and white. And in Washington, D.C., silence. Protesters took the streets in silence as they walked in solidarity with France. They sang the French national anthem and remembered the 17 victims of the terrorist attacks. The events in Paris last week were terrible, but the outpouring of support around the world was a wonderful display of hope for the future. Erin.
Yes, that's true. Thank you, Alex. Well, at this hour, Prime Minister Netanyahu is aboard the plane on his return flight to Israel. Shortly before his departure from Paris, Netanyahu visited the Hyper Cacher supermarket, which was the site of Friday's terror attack. Amid heavy security, the Prime Minister lighted a candle in memory of the victims. The bodies of the 4 victims killed in the Paris terrorist attack are due to land at Ben Gurion Airport tomorrow morning, accompanied by family members. The interment ceremony is slated to be held at noon at the Givat Shaul Cemetery in Jerusalem. President Reuven Rivlin, Prime Minister Netanyahu, and opposition head Isaac Herzog will eulogize the slain victims, one of whom was 21-year-old Yoav Hatab, who had just been in Israel on a birthright mission and dreamed of immigrating to the country. Meanwhile, volunteer members of the Zaka emergency response team have gone to Paris to lead efforts in the collection of human remains from the terror site in accordance with Jewish law. In addition to ensuring that all human tissue and spilled blood are collected, the Zaka volunteers will also assist the local Jewish Burial Society in preparing the bodies for transportation to Israel. Close to 5,000 security personnel will be deployed to protect 717 Jewish schools and institutions in France, where anti-Semitic incidents have doubled over the past year. Following a promise from French President François Hollande during a meeting with Jewish leadership at a Paris synagogue last night, the country's Interior Minister Bernard Cazeneuve today announced that 700 police officers will now be deployed, in addition to the 4,100 gendarmes already stationed. The ramped-up measures are being taken to protect the Jewish community in the aftermath of last week's attacks that have left many feeling that they're living under a state of siege. French officials say that soldiers will also patrol city streets and be deployed to guard key tourist sites and government buildings. Friends of the French supermarket attack victims and other French-born Israelis attended a memorial service at the Jerusalem municipality last night. The focus of the gathering was to condemn the ongoing anti-Semitism against the Jewish community in France. Some in the hall had arrived to the conclusion that the time has come for French Jewry to emigrate and consider moving to Israel. Referring to the terror attacks, Mayor Nir Barkat said that the entire world should now understand what we in Israel and Jerusalem have been experiencing for decades. Those in attendance expressed concern for their family and friends still in France, saying that it is no longer safe to go to Jewish schools, synagogues, or shops.
Knew them, like 2 of them. They were friends, so it's kind of difficult to be there and to live, because all my family is in France, and it's like so hard to to understand what's happened, because I'm here alone in Israel and they are just over there, and it's like crazy because it's like, it should be like the opposite. We should be in danger and they should be safe. And right now, I'm just afraid for my sister. She's in Paris. She's afraid to go to university. I don't know if you understand that. It's like crazy.
The largely French immigrant city of Netanya has held a large memorial service of its own last night. Residents lighted candles while holding flags and banners in a demonstration of solidarity with the Paris terror victims. Some of those present were friends of the 4 murdered Jews. Many who came expressed sadness as well as anger over the tragedy striking the Jewish community, as well as feelings of desperation over the inability to assist their largely defenseless friends and family.
We are very, very sorry about what happened in Chutz La'aretz. We're very close to the people who were attacked. We knew some of the people. It's an absolute catastrophe.
We have 1 minute of silence for all Jewish who died yesterday, and now we are support them because we are very angry and very sad what's about happening over there.
International counterterrorism experts are criticizing French intelligence and security services for serious lapses in their operations and ability to monitor suspected terrorists. The ongoing security concerns are likely to spark increased surveillance on individuals and sleeper cells still believed to be functioning in the country. French President Hollande today convened a crisis meeting to discuss how the security services failed to detect the terrorists responsible for the recent wave of violence. Also today, the French Interior Ministry released footage of the Friday attacks at the kosher Paris supermarket by terrorist Ahmedi Koulibaly. Meanwhile, Turkish authorities have revealed that Koulibaly's female partner, Hayat Boumediene, crossed into Syria on January 8th, days before his fatal attacks at the market and against a French policewoman. Joining me now here in the studio to discuss the issue of immigration from France is Avi Meir of the Jewish Agency. Hi, thank you for coming in this evening.
Thank you for having me.
All right, some 600,000 Jews live in France, and as we've already pointed out, that is the largest Jewish community in Europe. There have already been record numbers of French Jews immigrating to Israel over this past year, even before this wave of terror attacks. So at the Jewish Agency, are you putting any kind of special program in place as we speak?
Well, as you note, the increase in French Aliyah has actually been going on for quite some time now. 2012 saw about 1,900 immigrants. That jumped to 3,400 in 2013, and that itself jumped to 7,000 just last year. And so prior to this recent attack, we had been predicting that there would be about 10,000 immigrants in 2015, and we're now revising those estimates upward, obviously. We have taken significant steps in order to address that influx. We've dramatically increased our presence in France, as well as people here in Jerusalem dealing with French Aliyah. And people have to understand that there's a very strong sense of insecurity amongst French Jews that's been going on for quite some time. And so this came as little surprise to us.
How many are you anticipating may come this coming year?
So we're still in the process of assessing that. Some people have said 15,000, certainly more than the 10,000 we had been anticipating. Just in the past few days, we've seen the number of calls coming into our Jerusalem service center come in at double the rate that they usually do. And that in itself is higher than in previous years. And so we anticipate that there's a very, very strong chance that the numbers could increase even more. Yeah.
Now, the kibbutz movement has already said that they're making some steps to absorb some of the potential new French newcomers. Are there going to be other places or institutions like that, or is it likely that most of them will go to absorption centers?
Many of the French Jews who come here actually already have family in Israel. Most of them are of North African origin, and so many of them have family members, and they tend to join their families where they are. So many of them will go to cities like Netanya, Ashdod, Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, Eilat. Younger Olim will go to Jewish agency absorption centers like Ulpan Etzion here in Jerusalem, Beit Brodetsky in Tel Aviv, and others around the country. But we are working to ensure that every single immigrant who comes here has an absorption solution for him or her.
Now, you've already mentioned that you're increasing your staff size of, I guess, emissaries in France, but is that kind of a sensitive issue right now with the French government? I mean, to increase your presence or have any sort of a public campaign to encourage French Jews to move to Israel?
Right. Well, the truth of the matter is that we are being very careful not to try and exploit the horrors of last week in any way.
For any reason, of course.
For any reason, of course. Again, this increase has been quite some time in coming, and so our message has been one of solidarity, of support for the French Jewish community, ensuring that any French Jew who wishes to make Aliyah is able to do so, while at the same time ensuring that Jewish life can continue in France. And so we actually have a fund that helps secure Jewish communal institutions. We established it after the horrific attack in Toulouse in 2012.
Yes, the school attack.
And so it's actively involved now in assessing the current security needs in order to ensure that Jewish life is able to continue, and people who do want to come to Israel do so from a position of strength rather than because they're fleeing any kind of danger.
And that's really important. Avi Meir of the Jewish Agency, thank you very much for joining us this evening. Good luck with your efforts.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. U.S. intelligence agencies are warning the Vatican of an imminent terror attack at the papal headquarters. This according to reports released by Channel 1's Mabat last night, which come amid rising concern in Europe over threats posed by jihadists and European citizens returning to their countries of origin after fighting with the Islamic State in Iraq and Syria. Meanwhile, the Vatican appears to be the only European body that has failed to issue a statement or comment on the recent wave of terror attacks in France. While delivering his weekly Sunday Mass, Pope Francis spoke of his impending trip to Sri Lanka, but made no mention of the violence that claimed the 17 lives in Paris. Turning to horrific violence in Nigeria and the latest in the Islamist Boko Haram terror campaign, which is aimed at reviving a caliphate in Africa's most populous nation. Scores of residents in the northeast town of Baga are fleeing following the second killing spree since the terrorists seized control of the area this past weekend. At least 100 people have been murdered over the past 2 days in attacks by the Islamist insurgents, who witnesses say fired weapons indiscriminately and burned down homes. Soldiers fled the town on the edge of Lake Chad this past weekend when the Sunni jihadist group overran a nearby army base. And shock and outrage are also heightened in the northeastern city of Maiduguri, where 16 people were killed and more than 20 injured when a bomb attached to a young girl was detonated at a busy marketplace 2 days ago. Security sources say that the explosive device was wrapped around the body of a little girl who looked to be no more than 10 years old. More than 10,000 Nigerians have lost their lives in Boko Haram attacks over the past year, posing a serious challenge to the leadership of President Goodluck Jonathan, particularly in his bid for re-election on February 14th. Here at home and turning to election news, and there is another retiring member of Knesset from the Israel Beitenu party, a returning party leader, a new candidate introduced in Kulanu, and a primary coming up tomorrow. Here with more is IBA's political correspondent Eli Wogelenter.
We'll start with Yisrael Beitenu news, and Deputy Interior Minister Faina Kirschenbaum has decided to resign from the Knesset. She said a police investigation of alleged corruption has made her life impossible, and she has chosen to spend her time proving her innocence rather than running for the Knesset. In her resignation message, Kirschenbaum said that since she was questioned by police on December 24th, there was a character assassination and a war of attrition against me, severely harming me, my family, and everyone who surrounds me. Kirschenbaum said she henceforth will exercise her right to remain silent and will not cooperate with the investigation. Party leader Avigdor Lieberman accepted Kirschenbaum's resignation, saying, as someone who for almost 20 years was subjected to persecution and false accusations, I know what you are going through and how difficult it is for you and your family. I accept your resignation with a heavy heart. Kirschenbaum is the fourth Yisrael Beitenu MK to drop out in recent weeks, following Public Security Minister Yitzhak Aharonovich, Tourism Minister Uzi Landau, and Knesset Law, Constitution and Justice Committee Chairman Dov Rotem. Turning now to Shas, and you might find this hard to believe, or maybe not. Just 13 days after he resigned from his Knesset seat and said he was quitting political life, Shas Chairman Aryeh Deri announced today that he was returning to lead the party in the upcoming elections. I accept with humility and a bowed head the order of the Council of Torah Sages, headed by Council President Rabbi Shalom Cohen, said Deri, in reference to a letter sent him yesterday by Cohen, telling him that he must return to lead Shas. Deri resigned from the Knesset on December 30th, following the airing of a damaging video in which the late spiritual leader of the Shas movement, Rabbi Avaji Yosef, said that Deri was corrupt and too independent. Turning to the new Kulanu party of Moshe Kachlon, and the new name introduced yesterday was Ethiopian-born Sega Malaku, a journalist and previous manager of the Reshet Aleph radio station. The 47-year-old Malaku joins the centrist Kulanu party as the number 3. She immigrated to Israel at the age of 16 and is an active leader in the Ethiopian community. Finally, the Labour Party will hold its primary tomorrow with 36 candidates seeking slots on the Labour list. The party's 49,000 members will be eligible to vote from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. at 400 polling stations in 76 locations around the country. The results are due on Wednesday morning. And that's the latest in today's election roundup. Aaron?
Thanks for that report. And turning now to arts and entertainment and this year's winners of the Golden Globe Awards. Starting with Excellence in Television, and 2 new series were catapulted into the spotlight at the Beverly Hills ceremony, including The Affair, whose co-creator is Israeli director, writer, producer Chagai Levy. The series took home the top honors for Best Television Series Drama, and Ruth Wilson won the award for the Best Actress in a Television Series Drama. The Best Comedy Series went to Amazon.com Inc.'s Transparent, about a transgender woman who comes out to her adult children. Best Actor was scooped up by Kevin Spacey for his performance as a conniving Washington politician in Netflix' House of Cards. And in the category of film, the Hollywood Foreign Press Association tapped the coming-of-age tale Boyhood for the Best Drama, Best Director, and Best Supporting Actress, while the quirky period caper, The Grand Budapest Hotel, was a surprise winner for Best Comedy or Musical. And it was a big upset for the front-running show business satire Birdman, which was nominated for 7 awards, but only took home 2. Taking advantage of the sunny skies and snowy slopes, thousands of Israelis flocked to Mount Hermon on this first day of the ski season. After a week of continuous snowfall, the resort was officially opened, and parking lots were cleared to accommodate the expected massive onslaught of skiers and snowboarders. Heavy traffic jams stretching a number of kilometers were reported on roads leading into the site. Local sources say that some of the visitors have been waiting in their cars since Sunday night so that they could be among the first to arrive this morning and enjoy a full day of skiing. Taking a look at local finance, and the shekel today put in a mixed performance, while share prices on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange were up across the board. Here's a look at the afternoon numbers. The IBA weather team is telling us that we can expect an additional slight rise in temperatures tomorrow under clear to partly cloudy skies. The strong easterly winds will continue to prevail in the north. Here's the forecast here at home and abroad over the next 24 hours. Thank you for being with us this afternoon. Laura Cornfield will be at this desk tomorrow to bring you all the latest breaking news. I'm Erin Viner, wishing you a great evening and shalom from Jerusalem.